Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Not good.
How's your
Not
wife?
good. You were saying?
How is your wife doing?
My wife is doing better. Not yet fully recovered, but better.
Good.
Yes. Um, um, yes. So, how was your week?
Well, we went up to San Francisco for a wedding, but
Wasn't of you told me, right? Something to your wife's side?
yeah, on her side, yes.
Yeah, by us we call it the opposition,
Well, it's pretty cold up there. It was an outdoor wedding in January, which is cold. But I'm still well, didn't catch a cold, so that's okay.
Very good. Very good. So, right, we started talking about the Boaz and Ruth in the threshing floor, and we've talked about the fact that um she is we've talked about the difference between the instruction given to her by her mother-in-law and what transpires. We've talked about the fact that as opposed to doing what her mother-in-law said, which was to wait for him to say to her what to do, she is the one saying to him what he should do, and what she says to him is that he should marry her. Again, a big difference between what was suggested that she should do and what she does. Okay. Let's see the continuation of this dialogue between the two. Go ahead, please.
Vayomer, Barucha at LaHashem biti Hetavt Hazdech Ha'acharon Min Harishon the Vilti Lechet Acharei Habachurim Im Dal the Im Ashir. Then he said, "May you be blessed of the Lord, my daughter. You have shown your last kindness to be better than the first by not going after young men, whether poor or rich."
Okay. Giving us the sense that Boaz himself is not a young man. Okay, the fact that he commands her of not following the young man, whether poor or rich, suggests that he himself is not a young man.
Yes.
Okay, that is alongside the terminology that is used. How does he refer to her?
So she's kind.
No, he says of her that she is kind, but how does he refer to her when talking?
My daughter, my
BT.
BT, yeah.
Right, my daughter. Which does not necessarily means that she has to be younger, but it might be that. It might be just like hierarchy that he is, higher on the social hierarchy than her. But I think there is a good chance it is also the age difference between the two. Okay?
Yes.
So alongside one another, the fact that we have BT and the fact that she is not following the young man, okay, both contribute to that. Oftentimes when one hears rabbinic exegesis, one says to himself, "Oh, come on! How did they come up with it?" Okay, and the rabbis were very sensitive readers. So the rabbis, when they oftentimes when they expand the biblical story, or when they talk about these issues, they simplify the these matters. So the rabbis simply say Boaz was 80 years old. Okay, it's not that they had, I don't think they had a specific tradition that was not recorded in the Bible that means that tells us that he was 80 years old. But the fact they saw this combination, right? This what comes from the story, they felt that he wasn't a young man. And to say not a young man, they said 80 years old. Okay?
All right.
Right. Including the fact that they say that he dies the night that he has that she gives birth to their son. Okay? Again,
Okay.
not something that we have in the story. Also interesting is that we're told here of 2 acts of kindness, right?
Yes, the first is taking care of the mother-in-law, and second, not going after the young men.
How do you know that the first one is taking care of her mother-in-law?
Well, that was an earlier chapter, I think.
Yeah, it was on an earlier chapter, but how do you know that this refers to that? Okay, so
That's true. I don't know. Her last kindness might be something else. I mean, her first kindness might have been, well, that was the first one. That had to be, couldn't be anything before that.
okay. So first of all, I agree that it is following the mother-in-law. I think that alongside the fact that this is what we were told of, there is a very interesting connection as far as the language between the 2 acts of kindness that Boaz talks about, mentions explicitly. That is to say, you said you said that taking care of her mother-in-law was the first kindness, and I agree with that. But basically, you said this is what happened earlier, so I know it is that. But the connection between the 2 is a little bit more than that, because in both cases, Boaz mentions these actions. Okay, we see Boaz in chapter 2 in the previous dialogue talking about the what Ruth did to her mother-in-law, right?
Yes.
In chapter 2, verse 11, Boaz said, "It was thoroughly told to me what you did with your mother-in-law, that you left your family, and what you did. What did you do? You went to a people you don't know. ותלכי אל עם אשר לא ידעת תמול שלשום." So the going after a mother-in-law to a place she doesn't know is the first act of kindness, and not going after the young man is the second act of kindness, the second chesed. So both of them are related to the root Hey Lamed and Chaf. Okay, in chapter 2, verse 11, we have Vatelechi. You went with your mother-in-law to a people you don't know. Vatelechi vatelchi, sorry, like this. And here, the second act of kindness is not going.
Yes.
Okay, and both of them are mentioned by Boaz. So it's not just, oh, that's what was in the story, so naturally it is. But it is connected by both being invoked by Boaz and both being represented by the same root. Okay. Now, the going after someone, okay,
Yes.
going after someone has a sense of marrying someone, okay, connecting with someone, okay. So not going after the young men, and not just the poor ones. Im dal ve'im ashir. Biblical Hebrew way of saying whether this or this,
Uh-huh.
if this and if this, literally. And that's not a bad translation, whether poor or rich. Okay. Note that this is what we call a merismus. Merism in English. Merism or merismus in Latin. What is a merismus? When you use the two edges to represent the whole spectrum. Okay?
Okay.
When you say we're going young and old, you're not saying that all of the young people and the old people are going and the middle, the people in the middle are not coming. Right? You're saying the whole spectrum.
Yeah, from A to Z.
Alpha to Omega, Aleph to Tav. Okay? And even if you don't say two, which defines a spectrum, but just talking about the edges, you include everything in the middle. So even if you would say A and Z, you would mean A to Z.
Right.
Okay, so if poor, if rich, meaning all of the middle ground, and okay.
There's another one, from hell to high water.
Come hell or high water, right?
Yes.
Okay, very good. And I like these phrases. And it's called merism or merismus. Biblical Hebrew has quite a few of those. If you attend the synagogue, you hear the weekly portion when Pharaoh is asking Moses, "Okay, I'll let you go. Who's going?" What did Moses say?
Everybody and their animals.
Yes, basically Moses says, "Bin areinu bizkenenu," with our young one and our old one. Okay, meaning everybody. It's not that he's leaving the middle-aged people in Egypt. Bevanenu, bivnotenu, betzonenu, bivkarenu, and so forth and so on. Sometimes, these merismus, they can have people from the edges, sometimes similar people. So that's merismus. Another interesting grammatical two grammatical points that are interesting that I want to make here. Berucha at ladonai biti. So let's look at this sentence. What is the verb in this sentence?
What's the question?
What is the verb here in this?
Barucha.
Berucha, right? What kind of a verb this is?
Oh gosh. I can't remember the names of those, but it's Joseph.
No, it's not adjusted, but it does have the similar sense of adjustive, which wishes someone, okay, wishes something for a person in expresses the will of the speaker. When Boaz says, Berucha at ladonai biti, he is expressing the will of his will. May you be blessed. But it is not may the Lord bless you or something like that. May you be blessed. This is a passive participle. Baruch, katuv, shamur, a'u. That's a passive participle. We say it every time we say a benediction, a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, so and so. Lamdeni chukecha. Right? Whenever we make a kiddush, right? Whenever we make any blessing, Baruch, right? This is Berucha. But the usual sentence with a participle, a regular participial sentence, has first the subject, and then subject, and then the participle. Usually, whenever we have a participle that expresses the will of the speaker in a similar way to the jussive, as you said, or the volative, they are moved to the beginning of the sentence, as the volative verbs are. So the volative verbs, the authoritative, the imperative, and the jussive are also at the beginning of the sentence. And also the participle that expresses something similar is found at the beginning of the clause. May you be blessed, as opposed to a participle that simply describes the situation, which would naturally appear after the subject. Okay?
All right.
All right.
Is the same in English, would you say?
English is not my realm to suggest where the participle should be, but generally speaking, English is an SVO language. Okay? English is a subject verb object language, generally speaking. Biblical Hebrew, there is a very big discussion about this question, whether Biblical Hebrew is a VSO language or SVO. Okay? There is a grammarian who is very much alive today. His name is Homestead, and he claims that Biblical Hebrew is SVO. I like his books. I like his. I enjoy them, but I learned from Professor Moshavi at the Hebrew University, and she is her PhD was showing that Biblical Hebrew is a VSO language. So there is and the traditional view was that Biblical Hebrew is VSO. Homestead and others suggest that it is SVO. How can there be such a discussion? Can you not open the Bible, just count and decide, right? You would think it's a simple question.
Yes, not 50-50, is it?
It's not 50-50. But as with every statistics, my mother taught me, well, lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Oh, yeah.
You know this, right? So how do you decide what do you sample when you get into this discussion? And how do you define the standard? Okay, you can say very easy. I'm checking the frequency of each of these patterns, and whatever is more frequent is the standard, right?
Well, you might take one part of the Bible and find the statistics go one way, and then another part goes the other way. So there might be some changes in time.
Now you already present the possibility to that undermines the notion of frequency as the deciding factor. And indeed, what is the Bible is mostly prose, narrative prose. Now, Homestead and others, what they claim is that the statistics are skewed by the nature of the biblical literature, which is mainly narrative. They say that the VSO, which is dominant in the narrative, is simply not the standard. The standard should not be a narrative text, but rather a direct speech, according to them.
Oh,
For instance, okay, that's only one of the reasons why, it's really a complicated issue, a complicated discussion. I'm kind of I'm I have the alma mater uh, loyalty to Professor Moshavi, so I would say that I would say that definitely in regards to biblical Hebrew narrative, when the we see the VSO being dominant, the one of the claims, right? We've just talked about the participle that functions like a volative being at the beginning, and we said that the volative forms are at the beginning of the clause, right? One of the claims of Homestead is if you see that the volative form is at the beginning, and the volative form is not the standard in a language, right? The indicative form is the standard. You would assume, right? Rather than the volative. And if the volative is put first, it tells him that the standard is that the verb is not first. Because if for an unusual circumstances you put the verb first, then for usual circumstances you would have the subject first. I know it's a little bit convoluted, but yeah, that's one of the claims by Homestead. Okay, listen, everything, once you get into things, you understand that they're sometimes complicated.
yeah.
Okay. Let's see verse 11.
Vata biti al tir'i kol asher tomri e'eseh lach ki yodea kol sha'ar ami ki eshet chayil at vata ki amanam ki im goel.
Goel Anochi. We don't read this.
Ki goel anochi vegam yesh goel karov mimeni. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you whatever you ask, for all my people in the city know that you are a woman of excellence. And now it is true, I am a close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I.
Right. So again, we can see BT, my daughter, this connection. Al תראי, don't be afraid. כל אשר תאמרי אעשה לך. Remember, we've talked about the difference between the instructions and what happens here. So the instructions that were given to Ruth by Naomi was, he will do, you should do whatever he tells you. Okay, in verse 5. Okay, and here, okay, he says, I will do whatever you tell me.
Right.
Okay. Also interesting is ve'ata, which literally is and now, but it is a logical connection, not just a temporal adverb. Okay, so now is literally a temporal adverb, right? Literally now. However, in biblical Hebrew, it is used to make a logical connection between two elements. Okay, we've seen you did such a great thing, and therefore, okay, so and so. So making a connection between two assumptions, two assertions. Okay, so that's the connection between the two. כל אשר תאמרי אעשה לך. אעשה is the verb. Okay, כל אשר תאמרי is a complement of the verb. Anything you say, I will do to you. Why? Ki, again, ki, which creates a subordinate clause, okay, causes the participle yodea and the participle goel to come first. Okay, again, we said that usually in a independent clause, the participle would come after the subject, and here in a subordinate clause, you can see the participle coming first. Okay, a lot of discussion about word order today. Go ahead. So ki yodea kol sha'ar ami. This is also an interesting phenomenon. What is the word sha'ar?
Sha'ar.
Yeah.
I guess from the English, to ask.
No. Sha'ar. What is a sha'ar?
Is that a gate?
Yeah, very good indeed. Okay, sha'ar is a gate. So what does it literally mean?
I'm not sure how I can get gate into this. Oh, wait, the gate is the courthouse.
Right, it's also the courthouse, right?
Courthouse of my people.
Right, this is, okay, the sha'ar is a metonymy, okay? Do you know what metonymy is?
Oh.
No, so why don't you ask me when I'm using words you don't know? All right, so a metonymy, when you hear on the news that the White House announced tax cuts, let's say, except for being very happy, what do you know it really means?
Not the house itself, but the president or the executive.
Right, exactly. So when you see here the gate of my people, it's not the gate itself, but rather the people at the gate. And that could be all of the people of the city surrounded by that gate, everybody in the city. Or it could be, as you said, the courthouse, all of the legal counsel of the town. Everybody who's important knows that you are a worthy woman. Okay? That's a metonymy. When you use something that has a prepositional relationship to the object. Okay, so in the case of the White House, you mean the person who resides, who lives, who dwells in the White House. Okay, the people who are at the gate, in this case, very similar. Okay?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, very good. As opposed to a metaphor, which is something else. A metaphor has to share some features with what it is representing. Okay? A metonymy doesn't have to share the feature, just as to have a prepositional relationship to it. Okay. He eshet chayil at, that you are a woman of chayil, eshet chayil. We've talked about that in the past. We've talked about that, about the fact that Boaz is ish gibor chayil. We've seen that in chapter 2. We've talked about that at the beginning of our discussion when we've talked about the connection between the book of Ruth and the book of Proverbs. Okay. Ve'ata. So verses 10 and 11 were very optimistic. Verses 12, 13 are more realistic. Okay? Because while Boaz is very optimistic, and he is also realistic. Okay, he is aware of the complicated situation we have here. So there is an unexpected complication, because up to this point, we know that Boaz is the kinsman redeemer. We don't know that there is a closer one.
One thing doesn't make sense to me.
What?
He says, do not fear. She just the previous verse, she suggested he marry her. So why should she be having fear? That doesn't make sense.
Because he didn't say yes yet.
Well, he should be the one who's fearing when a woman says, marry me. The man should be shocked. And part of that shock is a little bit of fear.
Remember, you're thinking Romans, which is nice, but we have here the basic economical rule, okay, was that a woman without a man is in a very difficult situation. This is, by the way, encapsulated by the rabbinic legal principle, tav lemeitav tandu milemeitav armelu. The rabbis have formulated a legal rule that assumes a woman prefers to be married than not to be married, and it has legal implications. I'm not getting into it, but remember that women were not able to sustain themselves usually. So in order to take care of her and her mother-in-law, she has to be married. Okay, so she's asking him to marry her in verse 9. And in verse 10, he is not saying yes. He is commanding her for not following others. And in verse 11, he says, sure, anything you say, I will do to you.
Okay.
Okay, which means I will marry you, essentially. And everybody knows that everybody who's important knows that you're a great woman. However, while I am a kinsman redeemer, there is yet a closer kinsman redeemer. So don't worry, you will get married. Either by that guy or by me, which is, I know, it's funny. You say, because the objective is getting married. At
Yeah.
least this is how, the situation is viewed. So don't worry, you'll get married either by him or by me. So he's her safety net. For this is exactly what you see in the next verse. Okay? So by the way, Yodea, participle, Goel, participle, okay, Oe, Mr. Cohen, right? You have a friend by the name of Mr. Cohen, right? Or that's the most common Jewish last name.
Cohen.
Right, that's a participle. Oe, Kohen, Goel, Yodea. The furtive patach is added there. Very good. So that's Goel karov mimeni. So that's, and he has the right to redeem before Boaz. Okay. Let's see this.
Lini Halila Vahaya Vaboker Im Yigalech Tov Yigal Ve'im Lo Yachpots the Gaalech Ug Al Tich Anochi Chai Hashem Shivei Ad Haboker. Remain this night, and when morning comes, if he will redeem you, good, let him redeem you. But if he does not wish to redeem you, then I will redeem you, as the Lord lives. Lie down until morning.
Right. So look at the romantic approach here. Okay, if he wants to marry you, that's all right. And if not, I will marry you. Okay. That's not the most romantic thing to say, right?
Yeah.
But no, but really it is interesting because seemingly it puts the law and the common practice above the emotions. Okay? So he says, there is a law, there is the who's got the right first. Okay, and if he redeems you, and that's all right. Okay, that is all good and well if he marries you. Okay, im yigalech tov yigal. Now, this is interesting because while I'm presenting this side, it's not exactly like that, because he also presents the possibility that he will not do it. Okay.
Yes.
And if it were to be just if he didn't want to marry her, he would say, listen, there is a closer, you're a nice lady, but there is a closer a kinsman redeemer. And if that doesn't work, we'll see.
Yeah.
He already says that there is a possibility that he will not want to redeem her, then I will do it. Chai Adonai. Okay, so he is um invoking this oath, and I think it expresses the what he wants to happen. Okay, if he does not desire to redeem you, I will redeem you. Chai Adonai. Note the repetition of the root Gimel Aleph Lamed. Im yiga'alech tov yiga'al, ve'im lo yachpotz lega'olech, ug'altich anochi Chai Adonai. So we have in one verse the repetition of the root Gimel Aleph and Lamed has to do with redemption. Lini halayla, spend the night. I think that it expresses the fact that it's not the sexual tension is not not there anymore, and in the morning we'll take care of it, of these legal issues. Shichvi ad haboker. By the way, the rabbinic commentary does not like to leave unnamed figures in stories. So, do you know what is the name that they gave the kinsman redeemer? You know that the kinsman redeemer is unnamed in the book of Ruth.
Is not named?
No, he doesn't have a name. We see in chapter 4 that he is Peloni Almoni. He doesn't have a name. So you know what is the name that was given to him by rabbinic literature?
Oh, what?
The name that was given to him is Tov.
Tov. Oh, good.
Right, and this is how they arrived at that conclusion. If Tov redeems you, then he redeems you.
So this is the beginning of the last name known as Goodman.
Right. They Mr. Goodman, right.
I got a question here, because in the previous lines, he said, have no fear. Now, he wouldn't say that if he wasn't willing to marry her. They're connected.
Right. He is willing to marry her. And
but that's the first indication, or the first sign that that's where he's at. When he says to her, have no fear.
Obviously he wants to marry her, but he says that the law comes first. Okay. But I think that he is, if he doesn't want, then I will redeem you. Okay.
Well, if he wanted to say, I'll see if I can find my kinsman for you, but he's not offering himself as a backup, then he wouldn't be able to say, have no fear at the beginning there.
Right. So he is offering himself as a backup plan, and
he's withholding his agreement until a little bit later. So, okay.
Yeah, he basically agrees. He tells you, put your mind at ease. You're gonna be married, either to that guy or to me. I know it's it seems as if, and not the marrying to someone is what's important, but getting married, period.
Right.
Okay. Okay, let's see this.
Oh, okay. Vatishkav Margalotav Ad Haboker Vatakam Veterem Yakir Ish Et Re'ehu Vayomer Al Yivada Ki Va'a Ha'isha Ha'goren Vayomer Havi Hamit Pachat Asher alayich. Ve'echazi vatohez vayamad shesh se'orim vayashet aleha vayavo ha'ir.
Okay, let's see this.
So she lay at his feet until morning and rose before one could recognize another. And he said, let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. Again, he said, give me the cloak that is on you and hold it. So she held it, and he measured 6 measures of barley and laid it on her. Then she went into the city.
Right. There are some interesting points to be made here. Yakir, the root is Nun Kaf and Resh, an important root in the story of Ruth. We've talked about Madua Matzati Chen Be'enecha Lahakireni. We've talked about the root Nun Kaf and Resh that has to do both with recognizing and not recognizing, being a foreigner, and also with giving preferential treatment. Also interesting is the form havi, this imperative. This is the root is yod he and bet, but it appears in Hebrew, in the biblical Hebrew, as opposed to the biblical Aramaic, it appears only in the imperative form. Sometimes certain words are limited to certain kind of connected to certain forms. Okay? Like seamstress. You won't have simster. Okay? People would talk either about a tailor or a seamstress. Right? It is so the root yod hey bet, which has to do with giving, only appears in the imperative. Okay? It doesn't appear in the other conjugations, and that's interesting. The way languages are. Okay? Vayamod shesh seorim, 6 literally barleys, 6 measures of barley. What kind of measures? I cannot be certain. It's definitely not 6 ears of grain, right? And it's certainly not 6 ephahs, which would be too much for a person to carry. So it's the different suggestions were made in regards to how much she's carrying, but she's carrying with a lot of grain, and we'll talk about that when she comes back to her mother-in-law. We started talking about the participle today, right? And we've mentioned the active and the passive kal participle. So the basic form of the participle in the masculine singular in the kal binyan is kotel. And the way to remember it, as I said, is like Mr. Cohen.
Oh,
Kohen. Kotel.
Kohen, yeah.
And the same vowels. The feminine singular is either kotela or kotelet. Both the kamatz hey as well as the tav are feminine singular endings, feminine singular markers. Okay? Then we have kotelim and kotelot, masculine plural and feminine plural of the participle. Omedim, omedot. Shofetim, shofetot. Okay? That's a little bit about the structure. The participle has a gender and a number, as you can see, but not a person because it's not a verb. Okay, it doesn't decline like a verb, but rather as a noun or an adjective. And each binyan got its own participle. The kal binyan actually has two participles, the active participle and the passive participle. Now, the participle is used either as a noun, as a verb, or as an adjective. Let's see these examples. והנה בועז בא מבית לחם, ויאמר לקוצרים, and he said to the קוצרים. קוצרים is masculine plural of קוצר, which, as you can see, is like Kohen, harvester, קוצר, קוצרים, harvesters,
Yes.
reapers or harvesters. That's a substantive use, being used as a noun. You can see the definite article before it, even. Okay. Okay, so attributive use. Ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz. So masculine singular definite, masculine singular definite. The people, when the participle is used as an adjective, it has to agree with a noun that modifies in gender, number, and state. Okay, so it's masculine singular definite in both cases here. Okay, and finally, as a verb, hine hu zore et goren haseorim. As a verb, we have an explicit subject. He is winnowing. As a verb, the participle usually expresses an action that is simultaneously done to the time of the other actions around it. Okay, either by a verb or by a noun. Halayla. So he will be winnowing. Okay, because the participle itself is tenseless. It doesn't have anything to show what is the tense. Okay, so it is the tense is affected by the surrounding, by either the surrounding verbs or an adverb such as halayla. Okay, he will be doing it tonight. Thus telling us it's in English you would translate this as a future progressive. He will be winnowing tonight. Okay. Okay. So that's that, and I will see you again next week.
Now, I got an email from you, there's something coming up in the next hour, is that right?
In the next hour? No.
The Q&A period, and he says there'll be a change.
It was already yesterday for you.
The Q&A was yesterday?
No, it was your today. I mean, but earlier for me it was yesterday.
Oh,
It was your let's say 9 a.m. or so. It was 6 p.m. in Israel, Thursday. Not 6 p.m. your time.
oh, so I missed that. That's normally on Sundays, right?
Yeah, no. There will be on Sunday. There is another one on Tuesday. There are two every week. One on Sunday and the other on Tuesday. Tuesday it's 7 a.m. your time.
Oh,
Usually. Okay.
Yeah.
And that 7 a.m. turned into this week 8 a.m. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Doesn't apply to me. Okay, have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye.